Today, we are looking at a script for a YouTube video titled One Last Message Before Your Old Life Officially Ends, which is essentially a spoken word monologue framing a person's burnout as a biological metamorphic dissolution, like a caterpillar turning into soup to become a butterfly.
Right. And it's a super high concept piece.
The script suffers from a structural plateau in the first half, where it restates the premise of you are dying, not growing, way too many times before offering a new perspective.
Yeah, it creates this massive retention drag. The weakness here is really the pacing between that initial hook and the actual pivot of the video.
Right.
Because the script opens with this great visceral description of having a heaviness in the chest, which completely grabs you.
Oh, totally.
But then for the next 3 minutes, we are just looping. We get a paragraph listing things that are ending: jobs, relationships, habits. Then another paragraph listing feelings: numbness, disconnection, fatigue.
And then another one about the void.
Exactly. It feels like we are hitting the exact same note on the piano repeatedly. We get it. The listener is miserable.
Well, as I understand it from the notes, the argument here is that the author is trying to validate the listener's pain.
Sure, but
you're saying the validation phase is actually stifling the momentum of the piece.
that's it, exactly. There's a huge risk that by focusing solely on describing the dying process for so long, you actually cause the listener to tune out.
Before they even reach the imaginal cells.
Right, which is the core scientific concept that actually offers the hope. Right now, the narrative arc looks like a flat line that just suddenly spikes at the very end. We want a V-shape. We want to descend quickly and sharply into the soup, that dark night of the soul, and then pivot immediately toward the reconstruction phase.
Okay, I can see what you're going for here. So the suggestion is to compress that dissolution section significantly to create a sharper, faster narrative arc.
Yes, we need to merge the external factors with the internal feelings.
Could you give us a concrete example of how the author could combine those sections?
Yeah, look at the paragraph starting, "That job you've been forcing yourself to care about."
Okay.
And then the later paragraph starting, "Every structure that held your old identity together." These are doing the exact same work. You could combine them into one potent stanza.
So instead of a laundry list, you'd say something like,
The job is a prison, the relationship is a performance, and the goals belong to a stranger.
oh, boom, boom, boom.
Exactly. You hit the pain points in rapid succession. It creates a rhythm that mimics the feeling of things falling apart quickly, rather than this slow, dragging list.
And what about the emotional descriptors? Because the script spends a long time on heaviness, numbness, and disconnection.
Apply the same principle. Instead of 3 separate paragraphs exploring those sensations, just create one dense, suffocating paragraph.
Like, you feel the heaviness of a dead world pressing on a chest that is trying to breathe in.
That's perfect. That accelerates the arrival of the imaginal cells. We really need to get to the biology faster because that's the unique selling point of this script.
Right, because if you wait too long, you're just another motivational video talking about being sad.
Exactly.
Well, that leads us perfectly into the next point. The script introduces a fascinating biological concept with the imaginal cell, but fails to leverage the scientific reality enough to justify the claim that this isn't metaphorical.
Yeah, it's a really bold claim to say, I don't mean that metaphorically, I mean biologically.
But the weakness is that it promises hard science but delivers soft poetry.
That is the core issue for me. The text says, I mean biologically, but then it describes the whole process in these vague, kind of spiritual terms.
Reorganizing, shifting.
Right. But imaginal cells are a real, gritty biological phenomenon. In nature, when a caterpillar dissolves, its immune system actually attacks the imaginal cells because it views them as foreign invaders.
Wait, it actually attacks them?
Yes, it's a violent internal war. The caterpillar's old self is literally trying to kill its new self.
Oh, wow. And the script glosses over this conflict entirely.
Completely. By staying vague, the author misses a huge opportunity to make the argument authoritative and gritty.
That is a fascinating angle. So the suggestion here is to lean much harder into the hard science aspect of the metaphor to contrast with that emotional softness.
Yes, it grounds the spiritual claim in physical reality. Rewrite the description of the imaginal cells to include that specific biological conflict. It mirrors the listener's internal self-sabotage perfectly.
What would that look like in the script as a concrete example?
So instead of just saying they've been dormant inside the caterpillar, you could add something like, your old immune system perceives these new ideas as threats.
Oh, that's good.
That's why you're attacking yourself. That's why you feel crazy. Just like the caterpillar attacks the imaginal cells, your old ego is trying to kill your new future.
That is incredibly visceral. It explains why the transition hurts. It's an autoimmune response of the soul, rather than just saying that it hurts.
Exactly. It gives the pain a mechanism. And, there was another point about the soup itself.
Right, the primordial soup.
The script currently treats the soup, the old life, as just waste, or this liquid to be endured. But biologically, that protein soup is the fuel for the imaginal cells. The butterfly is built out of the liquefied caterpillar.
Oh, so we can use that to completely reframe the user's current suffering.
Precisely. A concrete improvement would be replacing the generic phrase waiting to reorganize with vivid imagery of these cells consuming the old self.
Like the imaginal cells use the protein of your dead job and your failed relationship to build wings.
Yes. That reframes the old life not just as trash to be discarded, but as necessary fuel. It gives the suffering a function. The pain isn't meaningless, it's construction material.
That is a powerful shift, going from waste to fuel. Now, moving on to the advice portion of the piece, the directive to stop forcing the old motivation and let it dissolve lacks the necessary nuance to be safely actionable for a general audience.
This is where we have to be very, very careful.
Because the weakness is that the script advises the listener to stop maintaining relationships, jobs, and goals because they are soup.
Which is incredibly high-risk advice. Without a clear distinction between internal emotional detachment and external responsibility, a listener might misinterpret this.
They might think it's permission to just walk out on their family or quit their job tomorrow morning without a backup plan.
Right, and that leads to real-world chaos, not a spiritual butterfly. The script really needs to protect the user from their own impulse to blow everything up.
I can see what you're going for here. The author wants the listener to stop the internal struggle, not necessarily their external participation in their own life.
Exactly. So the suggestion is to clarify that distinction. We need to add a specific qualifying line that frames surrender as an internal emotional state, not an external action plan.
Give us a concrete example of how to frame that.
You could add a line like, surrender doesn't mean walking out on your life today. It means walking through your day without the anxiety that you must love it right now.
Oh, that is so actionable. It tells the listener how to behave at that job they hate.
Right. They don't have to quit immediately. They just have to stop expecting the job to fulfill them. It removes the pressure without removing the paycheck.
That's a crucial distinction. What about the line regarding relationships? Because the script says, stop maintaining relationships where you're performing.
That's the other major danger zone. A concrete fix would be to refine that line to specify, stop the performance within the relationship. Don't imply the relationship itself must be immediately discarded. The advice should be to drop the mask, not necessarily drop the person.
That makes so much sense. It protects the listener from blowing up their support system while they are in a highly vulnerable state. It's about honesty, not abandonment.
Exactly.
Well, that brings us to another vulnerability regarding the audience and their mental health. The script's absolute insistence that you are dying and it isn't depression creates a potential safety risk for listeners who may actually be suffering from clinical mental health issues.
It really does, and this is a delicate area.
The weakness here is that the author is being very authoritative. The text literally says, you thought you were broken, depressed, but you're not.
Yeah, that's the line. And while it's clearly meant to be empowering, it effectively diagnoses the listener.
Right.
If a listener is actually clinically depressed, telling them it's just a biological process, don't fight it, could be actively harmful. It discourages them from seeking professional help. The tone is just too binary. It suggests it must be spiritual transformation and therefore cannot be mental health. Real life isn't that black and white.
So the suggestion is to soften that binary distinction while keeping the spiritual power of the metaphor.
Yes. Frame the transformation as something that can coexist with other struggles. Frame it as a perspective rather than a hard medical fact.
Can you give a concrete example of how to rephrase that absolute claim?
Sure. Instead of the absolute, you're not depressed, change it to, this might feel like depression, but look at it through the lens of transformation.
That small shift validates their feeling without dismissing the medical reality.
Exactly. It offers a tool, not a diagnosis. You could also include a subtle acknowledgement that this is an internal shift. The script can say, your soul is dissolving, rather than implying the listener's entire psychological state is purely a chrysalis phase.
It allows the listener to accept the spiritual message without having to reject medical reality.
That's a very responsible adjustment to make.
Definitely. All right. Finally, let's look at the ending. The transition from the profound cosmic horror of dissolving into soup to the engagement bait of drop 3 words in the comments causes a jarring tonal whiplash.
Oh, it completely breaks the spell.
The weakness is that the script builds this hypnotic, trance-like state. It talks about total, irreversible death and how dissolution doesn't ask permission.
And then suddenly, we are in standard YouTuber mode, asking for comments and super thanks. It cheapens the gravity of the message immediately after the climax.
Yeah, it feels like a priest finishing a really heavy sermon about the afterlife and immediately asking you to buy a raffle ticket for a meat tray.
That is exactly what it feels like. It just kills the vibe.
I mean, I understand that the author needs the engagement metrics.
We all do.
But it clashes with the art. So the suggestion here would be to integrate the call to action more organically into the narrative so it feels like a ritual, not a metric boost.
Right. How would you phrase that as a concrete example? So instead of the standard drop 3 words in the comments to let me know you're here, phrase it as a declaration to the self. Something like, if you are ready to accept this, mark this moment. Declare it below as a testament to your old self. I am dissolving.
Oh, I like that. That makes the comment an act of spiritual commitment, not just an algorithm boot.
It keeps the listener inside the narrative world you've built.
And what about the subscribe and super thanks requests?
Honestly, cut them from the audio entirely.
Really?
Yeah. Move those requests to a postscript or visual on-screen element. Keep the audio pure all the way to the end. The last thing the listener should hear is the butterfly is waiting message, not thanks for the super thanks.
That makes sense?
If you absolutely must include it, put it after a really significant pause, or just as text on screen while the music fades. Just don't speak it in the exact same breath as the soul-searching conclusion.
That's clearly laid out. It preserves the artistic integrity while still acknowledging the platform's requirements.
It creates a seamless experience. The goal is to leave them thinking about their life, not thinking about your subscriber count.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here today. Structure, science, safety, and tone. Let's do a rapid recap of the main points for the author so they can start the rewrite.
Let's do it. Number 1. Tighten the loop. The first half spins its wheels. Merge those descriptions of heaviness and the lists of jobs and habits to get us to the imaginal cells much faster. Create that V-shaped narrative where we drop into the pain and bounce out of it quickly.
Number 2. Add scientific grunt. If you claim it's biological and not metaphorical, prove it. Use the specific biological conflict, the immune system attacking the new cells, to explain the listener's internal pain. Use the soup as fuel imagery to give the suffering purpose.
Right. Make the science do the heavy lifting for the emotion. Number 3, nuance the surrender. Ensure the advice to stop fighting creates a very clear distinction between internal emotional release and external recklessness.
We don't want people quitting their jobs because a YouTube video told them they were soup.
Exactly. Frame it as stop the performance, not stop the life.
And finally, number 4, protect the tone. Soften the medical claims regarding depression. Make it through the lens of rather than an absolute diagnosis. And move the like and subscribe mechanics away from the emotional climax. Make the comments section a ritual, not a request.
Keep the trance intact until the screen goes black.
Excellent summary. This is a genuinely powerful piece of writing that just needs some structural tightening and a bit more responsibility in its directives to really land safely and effectively.
I completely agree. The core metaphor is beautiful. It just needs the execution to match the ambition.
To the creator at Digital Solace, thank you so much for submitting your work. We hope these suggestions help you refine the final cut. Please, once you've made these adjustments, send the butterfly version back to us. We would love to hear the transformation.
Absolutely. I'm dissolving now, and I'm ready to see what forms next.
Until next time.